happened. We see the trade deadline pass yesterday, so the Lions didn't make any defensive moves. They did bring in wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones from the Browns, which hey, I know a lot of people didn't like that move, but you did need to bring in another receiver. No Marvin Jones. Josh Reynolds real up and down. Don't even get me started on JMO. So that was a good addition, but obviously we'd have liked to see them add a defensive player. So Reed, where are you at with the Lions in the whole trade deadline situation?
I don't want to try and take too long because I know Adrian has to talk in on this, but that whole day I waited because they're doing it like the NBA now. You know how the NBA lasts up until the last 2-3 hours and all the moves start hitting and everybody starts coming out and there's always big trades. That's where the NFL has moved to. So me as a fan whose team should buy, they're in a good situation, potentially going to win a home playoff game or have a home playoff game, maybe a first round bye. We don't know, but sitting and waiting all day for 2 o'clock to hit, 3 o'clock to hit, and nothing happens. And then Brad Holmes comes out onto the podium and says, we're making moves. And the 49ers just went out and paid a bag of chips for an edge rusher like Chase Young, who can be a high caliber talent. And if they don't keep him at the end of the season, they let him go. They don't pay a 3rd round pick. They get another pick. They get a 3rd round pick. So if you're just getting a guy for free who could potentially give you, a sack, 5 more sacks on the season, or free up Aiden, give him 5 more sacks on the season, I don't know why you wouldn't take it. It was a real headache to me. Obviously, there was teams that were rumored to be sellers, like the Vikings and the Panthers and all these other teams that weren't ended up being sellers with their defensive ends. They definitely need edge help, and I don't like when people – I just had conversations with people, and they said, look what they just did to the Raiders. Yet the Raiders have 5 pawns as offensive linemen. Their head coach is horrible, and Jimmy G is a stick figure in the back, can't move with a broken back. So blitz every play, and they got 5 sacks last game. So don't come at me with they don't need edge rushing help after that game. It wasn't a good offensive line. When you went up against the Ravens, you didn't have any pressure, and Lamar got away from you. When you went up against Seattle and you had barely any pressure, Geno got away from you. You needed to make some sort of move. They didn't. I'm happy with Donovan Peoples. He's home. It looks like maybe he'll fall into this grit situation. But like I said, everybody else, if they live by this grit thing, they're going to die by this culture grit thing. It's going to be the worst thing that happened to them. Like I said to you guys, they should have went and got a corner, a lockdown corner. Sutton, if anybody else was throwing that ball to Devontae Adams on Monday night, he would have had 200 yards and 2 touchdowns because he was burning Sutton every play. They don't have a lockdown corner. I was so frustrated. I'm still heating up about it. So I'll leave it at that. Sorry.
No, as being a Lions fan, I can totally understand it. My Steelers we almost got Jalen Johnson from the Bears, but the Bears pulled out at the last minute. So that was kind of frustrating to put him with Joey Porter Jr., but that's besides the point. But anyways, as good as the Lions are, I think they're really, really good. I don't think they're elite, which is why I believe they're a tier below San Francisco and Philadelphia, who even if they don't feel like they need players, they just add the depth to just make your team better. You're one injury away from being thin at any position. They added Kevin Byard they added Julio Jones, who will make some flash plays for the Eagles. Defensive line is loaded, like you said. San Francisco added. I think if you're the Lions, you don't get complacent with just being good. You go after being great, and you add that guy who can be on the other side of Aiden, helping Aiden be even better, and that you even get more out of him. I believe James Houston's good. He's solid, but you talked about Aaron Glenn. They got home with blitzing the Raiders, but the key is Aaron Glenn does not like to blitz. He had to blitz to get most of those sacks the other night. So this is not going to come up good when you go up against an elite quarterback later on the season, such as a playoff game as you get deeper into the postseason. I think ultimately this affects how far they can get. I believe if they would have added a Chase Young or Montez Sweat or Danielle Hunter, you're looking at an NFC Championship game appearance at least. Now you really have to play excellent to win these games. The offense is going to have to be even better. So I believe at this point they're hitching the wagon to Jared Goff and they're saying go get the job done, which is going to show me something. If he can do that, then he can prove to be the franchise QB. But I believe they didn't do him any favors. So
I just think before you go, Raj, I'll make it quick. But I just think that the craziest is that this game is, yes, they looked okay. Everybody's like, this was their best win of the season, which is crazy to me because you're playing a bad Vegas team that every other team is blown out by 20-plus points. And Jared Goff, other than Amon-Ra St. Brown, didn't look all that amazing passes to some of these guys. And he looked like a few times when he was under duress, he couldn't do anything. He threw the bad pick. Luckily, Jahmyr Gibbs ran it for he totaled 180 yards or whatever, running and catching. So it's like you're not going to always have this against a solid team in the playoffs. If you're going against Eagles or 49ers, you're not going to be able to run the ball like that against a defensive line like they have, or you're not going to be able to have time to pass the ball, pass in your face, and Chase Young or Nick Bosa. So those are the things that annoyed me. And you can't rely on James Houston coming back and hoping that he's going to flash and have 8 sacks in 5 games like he did when he was a rookie, or C.J. Gardner-Johnson coming back and being fully. So that's just where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, Chase Young, San Fran, Leonard Williams to Seattle. Those are all good moves. Byard to Philly. I know a lot of people wanted the Lions to get Sweat or Chase Young, which I wanted to see as well myself. But the Commanders' GM is Martin Mayhew. The Lions fired him. So I don't think he was going to look out and do the Lions any favor. You guys fired me. I'm not going to throw you guys any alley. I think that had a role to play in this. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just assuming it. If that team fired me, I'm not going to throw them any alleys. I think that played a factor in it. And I think the Lions, they're going to just trust in their guys. They're going to trust in James Houston coming back. Pascal was a second-round pick. He hasn't really done much, but I know he's been out with injuries, but they're counting on him, the Okwara brothers, Onwuzurike. They got a lot of guys. They just got a lot of guys. I guess they figure somebody's going to step up and separate themselves. I guess they're betting on themselves in this one. So we're going to see if it pays off or if it doesn't.
The thing about Pascal is they drafted him. He's played like a total of, I don't know, probably like 20 snaps his whole career. He hasn't been healthy. He just came back off of IR, and then he got hurt again. And it's like, I don't know how everybody keeps saying wait until Pascal gets healthy. I don't know when he get healthy because he'll come to a game, and then he's out of the game 2 snaps later because he's hurt. So I don't know what's going on with him. Levi, I don't know what's going on with him. I guess they're hoping Broderick Martin's going to become something. I haven't seen him all season. I don't know what's going on with this team, with what they think. That's probably not any of my business because I'm not a GM, nor am I on the coaching staff or smart enough to be on it. But I just want to see something that's not going to disappoint me, and maybe Broderick Martin's going to end up being the next great next Leonard Williams. I don't know. Maybe he's going to be Leonard Williams. He'll come out and be beast, but they drafted him in such high hopes, and he hasn't done anything. He's been hurt all season. So Brad Holmes, his drafts have been either I get a superstar like St. Brown or some of these later round guys, or I get in player. That seems to be his MO.
Yeah, you could even real quick before we get off this topic, they could have even inquired about Josh Uche, the defensive end from New England Patriots. He was rumored to be on the trade market. They could have got him for something. I mean, he just something to give you another guy, give you 6-7 sacks just to help aid now. Just like I said, have depth because 49ers got it. Even the Seahawks, they lost Chenon Owusu and added Leonard Williams, and they added Frank Clark back. So it's just to give you some depth. It just shows you these elite teams in the NFC have pass rush. And if the Lions run into one of these teams, it's not going to be easy. They're not making it any easier on themselves.
I think if San Fran ends up winning the NFC West and the Lions win the North and end up having to host a playoff game, I think they might end up getting Seattle again, man. I think Seattle might end up being a wild card.
That is not.
I think it's gonna happen, man. I think San Fran's gonna win the West and Seattle will be the wild card and end up having to come in the Ford Field again, man. That'd be crazy.
That's my fear. That has been my fear.
Yeah, and we all know how well Geno Smith plays at Ford Field, so that'd be something right there.